On the 11th day of the war, fierce fighting continues to rage on between Russian and Ukrainian forces just 15 kilometers outside of the capital.
As the fighting in Ukraine escalates, NATO and its allies continue to stress their support for the country, but rejects calls for a no-fly zone.
Since the start of the war in Ukraine, the United Nations estimates that there are over 1.5 million refugees that have fled the country.
Italian police seize more than 140 million euros in Russian oligarch assets.
On the 11th day of the Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine, Russian forces continued their offensive. Although the Russian army has encircled major cities such as Kharkiv and Chernihiv in the north, the Ukrainian forces have managed to keep control of key cities in central and southeastern Ukraine. Our people, our Ukrainians, they're not retreating, they're not giving up. They're continuing the resistance. They shout to the occupiers, go home, like the Russian ship. Push them away from our territory, block their way. In the capital, Kyiv, hundreds of men were seen queuing to join the armed forces. A government order prohibits men between 18 and 60 from leaving the country since the start of the war. Civilians and soldiers have been preparing to defend the capital as a vast Russian armored column remains stalled outside of Kyiv. Kyiv is one of Moscow's main targets, and Irpin, a town 15 kilometers outside of the capital, has found itself on the front line between Russian and Ukrainian troops. The Russian army took control of the southern port city of Kherson, a move to cut off Ukraine's access to the sea. The Russian Ministry of Defense released this video of a military base near Kherson, claiming that the Ukrainian troops left their positions, abandoning NATO arms. Moscow now claims to have seized all these weapons. The eastern city of Mariupol also came under intense shelling from the Russian forces. A temporary ceasefire to create a humanitarian corridor failed as the bombing continued. And as food stocks dwindle, Mariupol is without water and heating, sparking fears of a catastrophic humanitarian crisis.
There are growing concerns about an amphibious landing in the port city of Odessa on the Black Sea in southern Ukraine. This follows the sinking of an Estonian vessel hit by Russian artillery off the port last Thursday. Residents formed a human chain on Friday to fill sandbags in preparation for a possible Russian attack. I am here to protect the city. I am helping with cooking and filling the sandbags and cleaning up. Over there is my house. We have to defend it. That's how we were raised. Volunteers and NGOs in Lviv in western Ukraine are wrapping statues, stained glass windows and other cultural monuments across the city in order to protect them against a possible Russian attack. You know, it takes time to get to Lviv. Troops will not reach it fast. But when it comes to a small nuclear strike, I believe that Lviv could be a potential target.
For a brief moment on Saturday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken crossed into Ukraine with the country's foreign minister. The meeting comes as NATO rejected calls from Ukraine to impose a no-fly zone over the country. But the alliance also added that other possibilities of aid are still on the table, such as providing fighter planes to Ukraine.
Several days of meetings with NATO, the European Union, countries beyond the G7, and we see that support not only continued security support, humanitarian support, economic support, but that support will increase.
I hope the people of Ukraine will be able to see this as a clear manifestation that we have friends who literally stand by us.
The comments come as Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he would consider any attempt to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine as participation in an armed conflict with Moscow.
И не нужно даже иметь баллистические ракеты межконтинентальные на самой территории.
It is impossible to do so over the territory of Ukraine itself. It is possible only from the territory of some neighboring countries. But any move in this direction will be viewed by us as a participation in the armed conflict of whichever side whose territory will pose a threat to our service members. That very second, we will view them as participants of the military conflict, and it would not matter what members they are.
As the fighting in Ukraine moves into its 11th day, NATO allies are continuing to patrol its eastern front.
Since the start of the war in Ukraine, a massive influx of Ukrainian refugees has been arriving at the Siret border crossing in northeastern Romania. Some arrive by car, while others walk for several kilometers to escape the Russian bombings. In just 11 days, more than 63,000 people have arrived in the small town of 8,000 residents. According to humanitarian workers, more than 1,000 Ukrainian refugees cross the Danube River every day at the Izacha border crossing. The UN reports that there are over 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees that have fled their country in the first 10 days of the war. And authorities expect the flow to increase in the coming days.
We have a planning figure, and I stress it's a planning figure of total 4 million refugees. When we started, I thought, well, maybe this is, God forbid we reach that figure. It's a lot, but now I'm getting worried that we will.
The small border town of Przemysl has become an almost unavoidable stopover in the exodus of Ukrainians fleeing to Poland. Many of these refugees want to join their friends or relatives already living in the EU. Since February 24th, more than 750,000 people have fled to Poland.
Italian police have seized a luxury yacht called Lady M with a price tag of 65 million euros, which is owned by Russia's richest man, Alexei Mordashov. This was the most valuable item in a number of seizures of villas and yachts worth a combined total of 143 million euros, taken from 5 high-profile Russians who were placed on a sanctions list following Moscow's attack on Ukraine. The luxury properties were sequestered in some of Italy's most prestigious locations, including the island of Sardinia, Lake Como in Lombardy and Lucca in Tuscany, while the 2 super yachts, including Lady M, were grabbed at their moorings in northern ports. Workers at the Tranmere oil terminal on the River Mersey near Liverpool have refused to take delivery of the Russian crude oil, calling for the government to close a loophole allowing foreign flag ships to deliver the fuel. And as Western sanctions mount, home rental firm Airbnb and online travel agency Booking Holdings are the latest global corporations to suspend trading with Russia. On Saturday, thousands of Ukrainian residents of the Russian-seized city of Kherson took to the streets to demonstrate against the presence of the Russian troops. This example was followed around the world, and in Paris, several thousand people gathered at the Place de la République to show their support for Ukraine and to demonstrate their opposition to the Russian invasion. In Lisbon, demonstrators made a human chain connecting the embassies that sit on the UN Security Council and demanded an end to the war. Some 29,000 Ukrainians reside in Portugal, making it one of the largest foreign communities in the country. I am here out of solidarity and also because what is happening makes me very sad. I also went through this kind of situation when I had to leave Angola. So I understand very well the situation of these Ukrainian women and children. This is why I'm here. Protesters in London's Trafalgar Square demanded support for Ukraine. Speakers addressed the crowd and led the demonstrators in the chant "Stand with Ukraine" and "Air Defense for Ukraine." It was the same picture in Rome, as thousands filled the streets on Saturday afternoon, waving flags, holding banners, and speakers declaring their solidarity with Ukraine and their desire for the war to end. Thousands of people marched through the streets to the city centre in Zurich on Saturday morning, demanding an immediate ceasefire, the continuation of diplomatic negotiations, and the withdrawal of Russian troops. In Tokyo, the crowd shouted, "Stop war, protect lives," while some held signs that read, "We stand with Ukraine," and "Stop Putin."